All right, hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar by Excel with Business and Filtered, PowerPoint Superpowers, Techniques for Intermediate and Advanced Users. I have created this webinar today with an assumption that those on the webinar have a basic understanding of PowerPoint. So if you don't consider yourself an intermediate or advanced user, some of this might feel a little complicated. I am happy to repeat actions and demonstrations that I do, and also this will be available for recording after the webinar, so you'll be able to go back and revisit. So if I'm moving too fast, absolutely ask me to repeat something, but also know that this will be available after the webinar as well. Just a housekeeping item before we get started. If you want to ask me a question, I do best when I keep up with them through the Q&A icon versus the chat box, because sometimes there's a lot of chats going on and questions get lost. Before I jump into the webinar, I want to share that I am an instructional designer, and I love doing these webinars for Excel with Business and Filtered. I've done quite a few. I consider myself a PowerPoint guru. I love trying to figure out new ways to make PowerPoint do different things or make PowerPoint look more modern so that it doesn't look like I'm stuck in the 90s using clip art from 1995. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and if you want to connect, you can check me out at my website or connect with me on LinkedIn. So this webinar is going to run a little different. If you've attended one of my webinars in the past, this one is going to look a little different. I'm actually going to exit out of presentation mode and I'm going to just take you step by step through all of these techniques and break down basically every slide and show you all of the tips and tricks. I don't really have a standard flow to the webinar. I've tried to group everything into 3 different sections so that will we can at least know we're done with one section and move on to the next. But I've really just tried to incorporate as many tips and advanced techniques, things that I consider PowerPoint superpowers, that I can. So we are going to start with the quick access toolbar. So I'm going to exit out of presentation mode, and you should be able to see my PowerPoint screen here. So I am going to now, let's see, I need to just minimize the chat box a little bit. So the quick access toolbar is this toolbar here above your ribbon. And you can see here that mine has a lot of different icons on it, and that's because I've customized my quick access toolbar. No matter what you have on your toolbar, you're going to have this save icon. I think that one comes automatically. I can't remember if these here, your font size, these actions, I can't remember if those come automatically, but there's a little drop-down menu, a little drop-down arrow over here to the right, and this is how you can customize your quick access toolbar. So there's a few quick choices here to choose from, but if you choose more commands, then you get access to everything that PowerPoint has to offer. And this is really so valuable if you're in PowerPoint all the time and you have certain things you use all the time. So first, PowerPoint gives you popular commands. But then if you drop down to all commands, this is every single thing that you can do in PowerPoint. And it is so super to be able to go through and pick out your stuff. So like if you find yourself always using animation delay, then add it to your quick toolbar. That saves you like 6 clicks. If you find yourself always, oh my gosh, changing to black and white, then move it over to your quick access toolbar. Bevel is something I'm going to be showing you a lot of today. If I remember, I should add that to my quick access toolbar. So over here on the right are the ones that I have added. These are some of the features that I use all the time. This outline weight takes me about 5 clicks to get to. So having it in my quick access toolbar is a huge time saver for me. So that's how you get to your quick access toolbar. You just choose your whatever you want to add, and then you just click add. Okay, and then you can remove it from here, and then you save. You can also just right click on the icons you already have added and remove it from the quick access toolbar. You can also just right click on the quick access toolbar and customize. So all of those are options. I wanted to share with you some of my quick access toolbar must-haves. So things that I'm using all the time that I consider a superpower of PowerPoint. Well, first of all, the quick access toolbar itself is a superpower, but here are some of the things I put on it. So the align and distribute tool. So this tool right here is the align objects tool. The next two to the right are the distribute horizontally and the distribute vertically tools. So these I use a lot because I am constantly trying to center things in a page, and I use a lot of shapes. As you can see right here, I've got 3 shapes. So let me show you why this tool comes in handy. So let's say I've created this these squares, okay? And I'm trying to line them up, and they're, you know, the spacing is all off, and I can't get them exactly where I want them in this ribbon. So I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going to do that by clicking on the tool and then holding down shift, or excuse me, clicking on the square and holding down shift and clicking the next one and clicking the next one. So I held down shift to do that. And then I'm going to go up here to my align objects. So you can see here all of these different options, and look, distribute horizontally and vertically is within this option, but I prefer to have them 1 click away instead of 2. So if I align these to the middle, look at that. Now they are in the middle of the screen. So they're still not the right width apart, and they didn't end up here in my little teal ribbon that I've created. If I align center, it brings them all together. So I'm going to Control Z because, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. So I want to distribute horizontally. Okay, so I've tried align middle and I've tried align center, and that didn't work. And look at that. They're perfectly spaced. So now that they're still all selected, I can click and drag and use and put them within this ribbon by myself. If I wanted to, I'm going to hold down shift and whoops, reselect these. I can distribute them vertically. Ooh, isn't that fancy? I can align them left. So now they're all on each other. I can, you know, go back and align them middle. So there's just so many options here. This is a good time saver for when you have multiple things on the screen. The next quick access toolbar must-have that I use all the time is the forward and backward tool. So I've made this slide for you, and it's got a couple of different components. It's got this picture here, okay? It's got a rectangle, a black rectangle on the left. It's got black rectangle or blue rectangles here in the middle. It's got circles, and it's got text boxes, okay? So there's a lot happening here. And when you make certain shapes, so if I were to use my shape tool, which I also keep in my quick access toolbar because I use it all the time. If I were to make a new shape because I decided I wanted 3 of these here, notice how the shape automatically, my rectangle automatically goes above the picture. So it's just because I had the picture on the screen before I had the rectangle on the screen. So the forward and backward tool is how I'm going to layer these pictures and shapes. And so I've got it up here in my quick access toolbar, bring forward, send to back. So, oh, here we go. I sent it to the back, but it sent it all the way back. So I need to bring forward 1 step. Let's see if I can make it do that. There we go. Now, the forward and backward tool is really helpful because when you are starting to type text onto shapes, you can often, you'll create the text box, and then it will be behind the shape or not in the exact spot that you want. So I find myself using it a lot with text boxes. You can easily get to it by right-clicking and going bring to front, bring forward, send to back. Like there, I just sent it to the back. But I like to have it in my quick access toolbar as well. So one thing that I want to share that seems counterintuitive, but it is actually, I consider, a superpower that a lot of people don't use, is when you make a shape and you right click in a shape, I find a lot of people choose edit text. So if I'm going to put 85% now in this circle, look how it looks off. And then I'm like, oh, well, obviously I need to make the font smaller. But now that's too small, it doesn't match up. So I don't like to use the right-click edit text. I prefer to draw my own text box and layer it on top of the shape. And then that way I can control spacing and I can control font size much better. So if you are making shapes, you want to be sure that instead of doing edit text, you are making your own text box. So then here's another thing you do. When you make your own text box, then you can choose the, so in this case, I'm going to choose the rectangle and I'm going to choose my text box and I'm going to go up to align and then I'm going to align to selected objects. And let's see if I can align. So there it is centered. And let's see, align middle. So now I am using the align tool with my text box. The reason it didn't line exactly to the middle is because I have this text box drawn so big. Let's see if I can do it again. So align middle, and now it's perfectly in the middle. I don't know how many times I've spent zooming in like you see me doing here and trying to move this as close as I can when what I was missing all along was this align button in my quick access toolbar. Somebody posted on the chat, will there be a recording available? Absolutely. One other thing I want to show you while I'm on this slide is how to make this blue match this blue. So the blue in the top rectangle and the blue in the bottom rectangle. And the size of the rectangle, notice how it's a little bigger. So in order to do perfect sizing, I always click on the shape and then go to Format and look at height and width, and I change it myself. So this rectangle is 6.89 and 0.91. So here I'm going to do 6.89 and 0.91, and then it's automatically back to the exact shade. Now, I made this exact blue in this rectangle by using the eyedropper tool. I love the eyedropper tool because it allows you to pull the color out of a picture that's on your page and make the shape or the text on your screen that exact same color. I use it, you'll see it all throughout this presentation. So if I choose eyedropper, I mean, I could make this rectangle, oh, I did the line. Oops, let's see. Shape fill. So I can make this shape. Let's make it the purple in his shirt. There we go. So if I want this rectangle to match, I can use the eyedropper tool again, or PowerPoint saves that color. So these are all colors that I've been using from the eyedropper tool, and I just choose it, and there we go. So I love the eyedropper tool. So lots to share on this page. All right. So that's a little introduction to the quick access toolbar. It's a little, I think it's not widely used, and it's a little thing that will make a big difference. And then some of my must-haves are intermediate things that I use and use all the time. So I drew some basic shapes in the quick access toolbar section. But I want to show you some really neat ways to use shapes in PowerPoint, things that I, again, consider superpowers that a lot of folks don't use. I'm actually going to go back to presentation mode because I want to show you this nifty little trick that you're going to see on the next screen. So let's say I've got this picture up and I'm talking, and then I want to highlight the facilitator. Did you see what I did there? Don't blink. I'm going to do it again. I don't want you to miss it. So here's my picture. I'm using it to explain some kind of fact. And then I really just want to hone in on the facilitator. So basically, I have made the entire picture go black and white except for the facilitator. Okay. I'm going to break this slide down for you. It's one of my fanciest things that I do in PowerPoint. But before I break the slide down for you, I want to explain the concept of merging shapes. So PowerPoint has a tool called the Merge Shape tool. And there's actually 5 different ways. I don't use the 5th one, so I didn't even include it on here. There are 4 great ways to merge shapes: union, intersect, combine, and subtract. So here they are visually for you. Union means that the 2 shapes become one shape. Okay, so in this example, I've layered 2 squares on top of each other, but now it's just one big, like almost little like infinity sign. Intersect takes out the, I had these backwards. So combined keeps the area where non-overlapping regions exist. So combine takes out the area where 2 circles overlap. That's a really cool Venn diagram. So combine is like a Venn diagram. Intersect is the opposite of combine. It will keep only the overlapping regions. Subtract is the first selected shape. So I select the square on the left, and then when I move the square on the right over top of the square on the left, it will take whatever part is overlapping, it will cut that out of the subtract. So basically I can make a crescent moon by using subtract, okay? So this is a great way to a great feature to use, but I take it a step further and use it with pictures. So I'm gonna escape out of here and show you one more time this fancy trick before I break it down. So here, I have used a circle and a picture, combined them, and turned the picture into black and white to highlight the facilitator. Okay, so let's look at this. Here's the circle I used. I have 2 pictures, okay? So here's the base picture. Here's the second picture, and here's the circle. So I've done some fancy things, but the first thing I've done is use this Merge Shapes tool. So I'm going to put the circle over the shape, and I am going to select, let's see. All right, so see over here under Format, here's my Merge Shapes, okay? I bet I could put this in my Quick Access Toolbar. You can put anything in your Quick Access Toolbar. But it's not highlighted. I can't use it because I don't have 2 shapes, okay? So I'm going to click my circle, and then I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to click that top picture. Now Merge Shapes can be chosen. So what I want to do is combine shapes. Now, look what happened. Wait, Tess, that's not what your end product looked like. Nope. I chose the circle first and then the picture. In this fancy trick that I do, I have to choose the picture first and then the circle. So instead of going circle and then shift and holding down the picture, I'm going to hold down the picture, see how it's selected. Then I'm going to hold down shift and I'm going to click the circle. Then I'm going to go to drawing tools, okay, merge shapes. I'm going to drop down that menu and choose combine. So it looks like nothing happened, but look at that. Woo! Okay, so here's the next thing I did. I turned this picture into black and white. How did I do that? I went to, with the picture selected, I went to Format, I went to Color, and I went to black and white. So now, I have the second picture. Then I just layered on an animation. And animations are something I'm going to talk about later on. Right now, what we'll do is we'll go to Animation, and we'll go to Fade. And then I just made the fade last a little longer. So if I go to presentation mode, here's my picture, and now we're going to zero in on the facilitator. We can make it even more fancy and make that duration, let's make it 2 seconds and see what happens. And now it really like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize it was going to black and white, and now it's in black and white. So I love this trick. I use it a lot. It is really very simple. You just have to remember that when you're cutting out a shape, I'll do it one more time. Let's see, let me go to my shape tool. Let me do a triangle. I got to choose the picture first, then I hold down Shift and choose the shape. Then I go to Merge Shapes, Combine. So that would be cool, right? Without a picture underneath it even, you could put some text in there. So, neato. Okay, let me move on. I'm looking at the Q&A. I'm also looking at the chat, and I don't see any questions. So I'm hoping that, I'm hoping everybody can hear me. But I'm also hoping that you're able to follow along and are getting some useful information out of this. All right, so the next thing that I want to show you is creating 3D shapes. So this one's a little tricky. I am not a 3D shape master by any means, but I will show you the things that I use and I like. So thanks for the validation. The folks posting in the chat that they can hear me. I love it. It's when you teach a webinar and you don't have any interaction, sometimes you wonder if something's gone wrong. And I have muted myself in the middle of a webinar before and not realized it and gone on for 5 minutes. So thanks for the validation, guys. So on this next slide, I want to show you a few things. Before I show you create 3D shapes, I want to show you this, how I got this picture in the background. So if you notice, I am clicking on this picture and it's not moving. Unlike here on this slide where I am clicking on the picture and moving. And that is because I am using, whoops, the format, the format button. So if I right click on the slide and choose format background, then I am using this fill option. So if I use solid fill, then my slide is white. If I use gradient fill, we're going to talk about this one, but if I use picture or text fill, then I get a picture. I'm going to go back just because so I don't have to look that picture up again. Then I get a picture as the background. I love using pictures as backgrounds, especially if I can use a picture that has white space that I can then put information on top of. So to me, this makes PowerPoint presentations look much more polished and put together. So I did a few things here on this page. Oh, I love it. Furiously writing notes. That's great. So I did a few things here on this page. The first thing I did was make a series of shapes. So I went up to my shape tool. I decided that I wanted to use the chevron. And so there are 2 different chevron shapes that PowerPoint offers. So this first one is just this chevron. Okay, it's just not as big. And then the second one is that second type of chevron. So the one that looks more like a V. So I made my chevrons here. Okay. Now, one of the things that I always do in order to be sure, I don't even think that one's the right height. Let's see. The format here, height 0.58, 0.56. Look at that. I am 2, I don't even know. Is that a millimeter? I'm 2 millimeters off. There we go. So one of the things I do a lot of is copying and pasting, and that way I don't have to redraw everything. So you can use right-click copy. You can also use the keyboard shortcut Control-V, but here is an even better advanced way to copy things when you are in PowerPoint. If you select the object that you want to copy, I'm going to hold down the Control button. See what happens to my mouse there? I held down Control, and see how it turned into a little plus sign and my arrow. So if I hold down Control and then click and drag real quick and let go of Control, I'm making copies. And this takes a little bit of practice. It's like dexterity with your pointer fingers because I'm on my laptop and I'm using my left and right hands at the same time. But if you hold down Control and click and drag very quickly and let go, then you can make copies very quickly. Okay, so that's how I made these. That's how I made these chevrons. Okay, so the next thing I did is I use the eyedropper tool for colors. So the chevrons are great the way that they are, but that blue doesn't really look good. So I just clicked my shape and I went to shape fill and I grabbed the eyedropper tool and I went, okay, I'm going to make this one the color of her shirt. And I'm going to make this one the color of, I think I chose something like that. I'm going to make this one the color of the plant. And I really just went through and kind of pick and chose colors. Then here is the magic. Notice how not only do these shapes have shadows, they look a little raised off of the page. This is like using shadow, but doing a way better job, making it way cooler. So when I say shadow, I mean shape effects shadow, okay? So cool, it works, but if you click on your object, by the way, these are let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different shapes. And what I did was select them all and group them together. So group is a function I use all the time. And it basically just turns a bunch of different objects into one big object. I'm going to click on my shape and I'm going to go to the second option under my Format Shape toolbar, okay? And I'm going to scroll down to the 3D rotation section. So you probably don't use the 3D rotation section. And today I'm going to encourage you to start using it. So this looks like a shadow. And if I were adding a regular shadow, I would just go to Shape Effects and do Shadow, and here are all the different shadows. But what you see here is actually not a regular shadow. I've done 2 3D effects. The first one is Distance from Ground. I love this one. So watch what happens to those chevrons. Okay, they're flat against the screen. All right, now watch this. Ah, doesn't that look great? I love it. I think that it just adds such a nice touch. Now, the other thing you'll notice is the Y rotation is at 305. Take a look at what happens if I put the Y rotation at 0. So those are actually the chevron shapes as I drew them originally, okay? But I started rotating, and I'm just going to hold this down so that you can see. Okay, so I had it at 305. The reason it looks different is because that Z rotation and that X rotation went ahead and preset for me. Watch me not be able to get back to exactly what I had when everything was so beautiful on the screen. Okay, so now I'm getting carried away. The point here is, there's another one, even though that doesn't look as pretty as I had before. The point here is I use, yeah, absolutely, you're gonna get the recording, everybody. That keeps coming up in the chat. The point here is that I use distance from ground to make that nice look, and then I used Y rotation. If I take this back, let's see, 305, there we go. Now it looks just so nice again. So notice here how I had just a little bit of trouble with the 3D. You're going to have that trouble too, especially if it's your first time using it. I have a lot of like high hopes for how I would use 3D shapes, and it takes me a long time to figure out what looks good and then to fix my mistakes like you just saw. But again, distance from ground is a way cooler way to use shadow. Basically, this is a shadow. All right, here's another 3D shape. This one, man, that looks fancy. It's really not that hard. So what I've done here is turn 3 triangles into 3D shapes. So the first thing I want to share is that PowerPoint 2016 has a 3D shape 3D model section. So you can choose from online sources, and then they have all of these pre 3D shapes that you can choose from. I don't get this fancy because my presentations are more really informational, and I don't get to add a lot of fun things like this, but I do like the shapes piece. So let's see, 3D shapes. And I'm just showing this to you because There it is, because you might want to do some type of, well, that's not going to work because it's a ball. You might want to do some type of chart where you throw in a 3D shape. You could even animate that ball so that it bounces across the screen. It's probably a whole nother webinar, isn't it? But look, if I insert this square, and then I click and drag, so see, now I have this 3D shape. So PowerPoint does have that. However, it's not going to be all inclusive of what you might want for a 3D shape. And that is where beveling comes in, okay? So here I have made a triangle, and I have gone to format shape, and I've gone down to 3D format, okay? Notice here, so here's what it looks like as a regular triangle. Notice here on the right what my presets are. I've changed my bevel to this soft round. If I hover my mouse over, it shows, so soft round. And then the width is 17.5 and the height is 26.5, okay? So, oops, I didn't mean to click there. So let me show you what happens if I go to, let's see, let me go back down here, let me click on my triangle. Let's change that top bevel. Check that out. Ooh, I actually like that one a lot better than the one that I made. And I can change the width. You're not going to be able to see that because of the color I've chosen, but here's the height. So now I'm making an even bigger triangle. Okay, all I did here was copy and paste and change the size and the color to make 3 more triangles. Then once you do 3D format, then you go to 3D rotation, and that's what gives it more of a 3D look. So you can use some of the presets. So there are, oh, that's not a good one. Let's see. I can just turn it to the side a little bit if I wanted, but I prefer a lot of times to do my own and to play around with X, Y, and Z rotation in order to get it to look a certain way, like I had these stacked on each other. So again, it's just a matter, you could probably Google and try to find some preset ones, but for me, I just have to play around and like figure out what's the best way that I want to make this shape work. Look, I could make a spaceship out of that if I wanted to. So 3D shapes is neat. This is extremely advanced 3D shapes. But it's not that difficult to access. You make a shape, okay? Even if you don't have your format shape there, you make the shape, you right-click the shape and choose Format Shape. You choose the second option, and you go down to 3D Format. You choose a bevel. Let's use Relaxed Inset Bevel, okay? Then you change up the height and the width. You know, I have no idea how good this is going to look, but we're going to just pretend here and play around. I can change the depth if I want to. This is one that a lot of folks use when they use 3D. Then I go to 3D rotation, and I just made a 3D arrow. Well, isn't that fancy? Let's change the color so I can make it even look fancier. I'm going to do no shape outline, and then I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to fill, eyedropper, and I want it to be, there we go. Hey, that's cool. Hey, look over here, create a 3D shape. So there you go. All right, we are moving right along. I did some fun with shapes by showing you the combine tool and a fancy way to use it with pictures. I also showed you distance from ground, which is a better way for shadows. And then I showed you how to make a very simple 3D shape, though disclaimer, 3D shapes take a lot of playing around and time and effort. Now this is just the miscellaneous section. So another set of techniques that I use all the time in my PowerPoint presentations. So the first one is layering images. You may not know that just like you can put make an image the background of a slide, you can also fill a shape with an image. And so look at that. This shape has this image as part of it, which is really cool because no matter how it changes, the picture goes with it, and so it's not distorted. Look at this. If I move the quote bubble down, then we get that orange succulent. Isn't that so cool? Okay, so I want to show you how to do this. Oops, very, very easy. For if you're an intermediate user, right? Some of you may be going, Tess, what do you mean this is easy? I don't even know what you're clicking on. So you're going to make your shape. In this case, I made a quote box shape. So if I go down here, I went to the callouts and rectangle speech bubble. Okay, so here it is. Now I'm going to go to Format Shape. That's this toolbar on the right. And instead of solid fill, I'm just going to do picture fill. So it automatically puts the cactus picture and the succulent picture in because that's what I had. But I could go and insert pictures from a file on my computer if I wanted to. I could also just do like a texture fill. So we could do something like that if I wanted to. But again, you can just go and choose what you want. The neat thing about this quote bubble is I just clicked on on this orange dot. I just click and hold and drag, and that's how I moved the quote bubble piece around. Another thing that I did here was just layer a text box over top. So if I right click in this quote bubble and choose edit text, let's see, I need to turn it, I need to change the color. Okay, that looks fine, but I can't move tips and tricks up to the top. So again, that's why I create a text box, and then that way I have full control over where in the text box where in the shape my text box goes. So again, I really prefer to make a text box and layer it over the shapes that I want to write in. One last thing about this slide that you're going to see on the next slide as well, and that is using the transparency tool. So you can use the transparency tool in order to make images and shapes lighter so that you can make one particular image or object pop, or you can make text stand out. So in my format toolbar over here on the right, I've added my background picture. And now what I'm going to do is click and drag this transparency slider. So see if I go to 100%, it's completely gone. So one neat thing about this picture is if I make this light enough, then this call out is darker, and that is a cool thing to see. Let's see, we had a quick question come in. How do you make your own text box? I go to Insert, Text Box, and then click and drag, and then you can start typing. Okay, so transparency. Let me show you transparency in another way. So here I have just a regular slide. The first thing I've done is use the gradient tool to change the background of the slide. So you'll notice here in the gradient section, so I have the gradient radio button clicked, and then PowerPoint gives you some presets, so I can change, I don't want to use that one. I can make it like a rectangular. You can see the colors changing a little bit, radial or shade. Yeah, I just like linear. I just like to keep it simple. But down here is the money spot. And these are the gradient stops. So notice as I move, the gradient starts to look different. You can really see it with that one. Okay, so you can add and remove gradient stops. What I did here is click on a gradient stop, and then I can choose the color. So we can do layers of green if we want. So I just click on the gradient stop, and I don't know, let's see, choose a color, okay? But you can add and remove gradient stops too, and that's what this plus and minus is for. So I can click on this middle one. Let's say I don't want it anymore. I just click remove. See how quickly it changed? Oh wait, I did like that one. So I'm just gonna add it back. And now that it's selected, I'm gonna change the color. Let's use blue. Oh, that's pretty fancy. Okay, so adding and removing gradient stops and changing the color using the slider. There we go, we could do that too. And now it's almost like a rainbow effect. That's actually how you would make a rainbow, is adding seven gradient stops and choosing all your colors. The next thing I did here was create a shape and make it transparent. So this is just a circle. Okay, I made a circle and I filled it white and I made the shape outline no outline. I prefer not to use shape outline because I do so much with shapes, and that's just a preference of mine. If I put the shape outline on here, you can see the transparency tool and how it worked. So with the circle chosen, I just went to transparency. So there it is, the way that I drew it. And now, oops, there it's disappeared. Now here it is. Okay, so you might like that. You might like that white line. I don't, so I like to go to shape outline, no outline. Then I just got fancy and I just moved it to the corner of the screen, right? So this might be a way that you make a neat background or a neat chart. If I go to presentation mode, you can see here that you don't see the extra parts of the circle. They're just off the screen, which is great. Okay, so gradient tool and transparency. And remember that I found this under the format shape toolbox. And remember that to get to the format shape toolbox, you just right click and you can choose format background. You can right click on a shape and choose format shape. But this toolbar shows on the right, and then you can keep it up. I keep mine up most of the time because I am formatting shapes all the time. Okay, so there we go. So here I'm just combining a bunch of different things that I have been sharing with you. And what I want to focus on is perfect sizing. So take a look at how I tried to get this, this title here in the very middle, but look how my text box goes off the screen. So don't rely on your eyeballs to try to get everything perfectly sized and perfectly aligned. Use PowerPoint's tools to do that. So in this case, I would make the text box the exact size of the screen, and then I would align here in the center. And that just assures that it looks great. If I wanted to, I could align it right because I might not want to cover that palm tree. Okay, but perfect sizing in professional PowerPoint slides use these alignment and sizing features. So for these squares, what I did here was copy and paste 4. And then I made sure that everything was, I moved it around, so I made sure that everything was as aligned as I wanted it. And then I went back and checked my height and width on each of them. Notice how when I click and drag, I'm getting these grid lines. That is because under my View tab, I have, well, these are the actual grid lines, but I have options chosen in order to see how things are aligned. So I would suggest that another way to ensure perfect sizing is to have your grid lines and your guides selected so you can see it here. So in this case, I might actually decide, you know what, I want to align these squares to that very left side, and see how that red line shows me that that square is perfectly aligned. Okay, so now everything is lined up. Now, for presentation purposes, I'm going to take those off because I think it just makes it harder to see. So then I made a circle, and I wanted to make the circle transparent, and my goal was to put the circle in the middle. So I can surely try to hand move this circle, but look what happens. It gets distorted. So one trick is that you hold down the Shift button, and then you click and drag, and it will keep the proportions the same on your circle or any shape. So you hold down Shift. But the other thing to do here is to go back to your Format tab and manipulate your shape this way. It is so much easier and less time consuming. So now, look at this. I can put my shape here in the middle, and now I just need to work on the right size. So what I'm going to do is click this expansion arrow in the size box, and I'm going to choose lock aspect ratio. And locked aspect ratio means that anytime I change the height, the width changes too. Okay, so now I can just go bit by bit in order to make the perfect size. I think I also put a shadow. I did. I put a shadow on this square, on this circle. So here it is. But let's get fancy and go down to 3D rotation and make it a distance from ground. So let's just do 10 and then let's rotate it a little bit. Whoa, rotated it too much there. But you can see how now I can also rotate it more. Okay, so I can, I can turn this circle really into anything that I want. There we go. Hey, that looks kind of interesting. All right, moving right along. You may not know that PowerPoint has some picture presets that it will give you ideas for how to move a picture. It comes up automatically. If you put a picture on the page, it'll say, hey, what do you think about these different ideas? I did a few things here with this picture and wanted to show you what I did. So first, I used the eyedropper tool to format the background. So this is its own picture. See that? I used the format tool or the eyedropper tool. So here I am in format background, solid fill, and I just took the eyedropper tool and I was like, oh, I want it to be this color. And there we go. So that's a cool thing to do. Then this is a white box behind the picture itself. Let me see, I'm going to add a new slide and show you what I meant by the, let's see, I'll just add a cute picture of my kids. Won't that be great? Usually, okay, so see how this design ideas, it just popped right up. And so here, I can look at, oh, look, I like this idea, or I like this idea. So you can make these on your own, or you can just get some ideas. Hey, that's pretty fancy from PowerPoint. But when you put a picture on the slide in PowerPoint 2016, this design for impact, basically it's artificial intelligence, right? So it pops up and you can move around. But you can also click on this design tab and get design ideas over here. So that's cool too. It doesn't work with text. So like if I go back to this slide, see how it says, sorry, we don't have any ideas for this slide. The way that Microsoft has it working at the moment is only for pictures that you put on the slides. So no text or shapes at this point. Okay, so let me delete that picture. So now I want to show you another neat feature. I've got two more and then we're going to wrap up. This slide is pretty fancy, right? It's got some text on it, it's got a background, and it's got this picture popped out. Everything I've taught you today, you can do to make this, okay? First, I took a picture. So here is my picture. Then I went to format the background of my slide and I wanted to do gradient fill. So I have 3 gradient stops. I'm still here in linear. Check out this. This is just like working smarter and not harder. So this first gradient stop, I wanted to be blue. Oh, okay. So I'm going to use the eyedropper tool and I'm going to make it, oh wait, hold on. I did the wrong thing. I'm going to use the eyedropper tool and I want it to be the same blue in this picture. Then for this middle stop, I am going to use the eyedropper tool and I want it to be this color. And then for this last stop, I'm going to use the eyedropper tool and I want it to be this dark pink. So basically I just mimicked, recreated, copied the background in this picture, okay? Then I wanted to make this picture stand out and all I did, picture effects, shadow. Okay, so I think I did a top right shadow. Yeah, that's the one that I did, offset center. But then, oops, then I went over here to my shadow presets. So your menu probably looks like this. I added a shadow, and then I just played with transparency, size, blur, angle, and distance. So look what happens here. Distance makes that shadow a little deeper. Angle offsets it. You can hopefully see these things as they're moving. Blur does exactly that. Size, whoa, I can make a really big shadow. Okay, that's a little weird, but I'm sure there's a slide I'll make one day where I'll want to do that. And then transparency, so light and dark. Hey, another thing that you're probably not using that's super cool is you can change the color of a shadow. Did you know that? So I can make the shadow white. And so now it looks like it's just glowing. I can even make the shadow pink. So now it kind of disappears here, but then it shows up more. Okay, that might be something I want to do too. So playing with the shadow presets, the reflection presets, the glow presets, you can change all of this stuff. And a lot of times as PowerPoint users, we don't realize we can do all of those things because what we're doing is choosing format and picture effects, and we're just choosing from here. And that's all we've got. But you can actually change all of these. And one of my favorite things to do is to play with the shadow. All right, last one, and then we'll wrap up. I love using the animation pane. What I have here is a slide that's just a static slide. So I've put a picture as my background. I've made it transparent. I've layered on a shape, okay? I've made the shape transparent. It's at 34%. I use the eyedropper tool to get a blue that's like the blue in the sky. I've got text boxes, I've got a line, and I've got another text box here. And now I want to animate all of this stuff. The animation pane is your best friend when you are animating a lot of things. And so here, what I want to do, let's say that I want this to come in first, okay, the animation pane. So I want it to actually fly in. Well, that's weird. Oh, but if I go to Effect Options, now it can fly in from the left, okay? Now I can make it go faster or slower, okay? And I'm going to get to more of that. Now I want to add another animation. So this is going to be one, and this is going to be an appear, and then this is going to be an appear, and then I'm going to make this line appear. All right, so now I see my animations, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, but wait, I want this line to come in before the text boxes. So the first way to do it is to use the move earlier, okay? So I just, with my animation of the line, with that button clicked, I just did move earlier, move later. See how it goes to 1 and 2. Okay, so now I look at my animation. Well, hey, that's kind of cool, but I can make it way better. So now I'm going to open the animation pane, okay? So your animation pane gives you the ability to not only see the order of your animation, and then you can click and drag and move things around if you want, but you can right click to get even more options for the animation. Okay, so I like how this one is coming in from the left. So I just clicked this animation and then I clicked play. Okay, so that way I can preview it. But now I just want this line to appear at the same time that this text box comes in. So I am going to click and drag and move the line animation to number 3. Okay, so text box 14, I know that that's this one because it's also orange. And then I'm going to right click on my line and I'm going to say start with previous. And it actually takes that animation off because when this animation comes in, the line will show too. So if I do play, so they just appeared, okay? But let's take it a step further. Let's go to Effect Options and let's do, oh, you know what? It's because appear isn't going to give me the option. I'm going to do fade. We are going to, so I'm going to right click and Effect Options and animate text by word, and timing, I want it to last a total of 1 second. Did you see that? So now I'm going to go to presentation mode. So I'm playing around with animation, the animation pane. Oh, I guess I didn't save it. Of course I didn't. Bottom line, open your animation pane and right click to get even more animation options. I really like effect options and I play around a lot with timing. The other thing, the disclaimer I want to make is that I would not recommend you use the majority of these animations. In order to make my presentations look professional, I use advanced techniques on only 3 types of animations: appear, fade, and well, I typically only use wipe. But in this case, I think I used fly in. I guess my favorite 2 are appear and fade. And then the other ones you just use very sparingly. The last thing I want to show you before I wrap up is how to how to add multiple animations to one object. So here we've got my text that says the animation pane, and it comes in first. While this is selected, I'm going to choose Add Animation, and I'm going to choose Fade. Okay, so now I can see here with the 1 and the 4 that this object has 2 animations. And let's say I don't want it to fade last. I actually am going to move it earlier because I want it to fade with the second animation. Okay, so now let me move it back. So now I've got 1, the animation comes in, 2, this text box comes in, and then 3. And I'm going to choose, so red means exit. I'm going to choose start with previous. Now watch this. See how it faded away? So I just added an entrance and an exit to this object. And so the way that I keep up with animations is to have my animation pane open. Now, full disclaimer, sometimes I have to delete every single animation because I've done too much or I'm too confused myself, and start all over. And all you do is you can just click remove, okay? And so now here I've got a clean slate, and I can keep my animation pane open, and I can start all over, okay? So I do that as well. All right, so I hope that you found value out of this PowerPoint's Superpowers webinar. I have just a few minutes left to answer questions, and there's one that came in a few slides ago that I'll go ahead and start with. Is it a good strategy to build your background first and then insert pictures and then text? Yes, especially if you're going to use a picture on as your background. Oftentimes, it takes the longest for me to figure out the picture that I'm going to use on the background. And then I build around it. But if you're not using a picture on the background, like this last slide, this is just a rectangle that I've put up here. But I did the rectangle first, and then I was like, oh, okay, I want to layer some things on here. So then this is just, oh, look. This is just a text box where the text is in white. I could get really fancy and like move it down a little bit. Ooh, and so then it looks like it hangs off the page, and that's kind of cool. Okay, and then I added my own picture here. I cropped this picture to shape. So crop to shape. I really like this. I crop a lot of things to a circle. I can crop myself to a triangle. That's kind of weird though. I could add shadows on it, whatever. Where do you get your images from? I love that question. So I have some favorite image places. I'll just type it right here so you can see. Unsplash.com and Pexels.com are free. Creative Commons, so you can get pictures from there all day long. I love those a lot. I use them a lot in my CLT Leads social media stuff. But if you have money to spend, or your company is willing to get you a subscription, the best images come from did I do 4 W's there? iStockPhoto.com is what I think it is. iStockPhoto. Those images you do have to pay for. Let's see. iStockPhoto.com. But they are brilliant, and a lot of the pictures that you saw in this are photos that I've purchased before. Let's see. I think I've got one more question coming in. Oh, no, just a comment. This has been so helpful. Can't wait to watch it again. Yeah, you probably will want to watch it again because there's so many tricks in there. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up, and want to leave you all with connecting with me on LinkedIn if you have more questions. There's my full name, Tess Osman, or you can find me at cltleads.com. Thanks so much. Have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit subscribe and the bell icon to keep up to date with our latest content. Happy learning!